In '97, Perfect Blue somehow captured the consequences of the approaching digital age with almost clairvoyant predictability. Satoshi Kon's psychological thriller tells the story of pop idol Mima as she leaves behind her girl group Jam to pursue an acting career. Her transition into the more mature actress persona is met with resistance and doubt from everyone around her. Her largely male fan base from Jam is disturbed by her increasingly overt sexuality, and her manager, Rumi, is concerned about the viability of Mima's career with her changing image. Quickly, what begins as an apparently sunny and lighthearted story devolves into a heady spiral of violence and paranoia as the people associated with Mima's new acting career are gruesomely murdered. Much has been said about the film, but here we're going to focus on what we at least believe gives Perfect Blue its enduring resonance with global audiences over 20 years after its release.
HTTP のなんか出た!
In the film, it's Mima's first step into the digital world that begins to fragment her reality. Mima's Room, a fan-run blog that speaks from the perspective of the real Mima, exacerbates the identity issues caused by the make-believe nature of her acting and music career, ultimately causing Mima to lose her grip on reality. Mima first finds the blog funny and even charming in the way that it manages to capture her voice and mannerisms. But as she descends into paranoia and uncertainty, the boundary between herself and the fan-made Mima becomes less certain. The blog's creeping claim over the eerily mundane yet intimate details of Mima's life couples with her new role on the murder drama serial Double Bind, a show with eerie parallels with Mima's own career transition to ultimately make Mima completely lose track of her reality.
Mima is soon haunted by a pop idol version of herself that taunts her with the doubts she has about her transition. This seemingly illusory Mima is molded by the fan-made online persona, but it's animated by her own projected insecurities. Is acting really what she wanted to do? Was she really truly comfortable sexualizing herself for the sake of her career? Was the fake Mima online actually the truer version of her? When the line between reality, make-believe, and her own doubts become too blurred to distinguish from each other, the result is horrific. A distant, depersonalized reality, and no sense of control over any part of it. When it becomes too much for her to bear, Mima just resigns herself. She gives in and stops fighting to hold on to the truth because she no longer knows what it is.
It is perhaps this ambiguity on Mima's part that allows her fans, managers, and others to take advantage of and project their own desires and insecurities onto her. For example, Mima's personal life and behavior becomes increasingly reliant on the Mima's Room blog, which is written by a disfigured and antisocial fan who goes by the online alias Me-Mania. As Mima's self-doubt and lack of identity become more extreme, she increasingly turns to Me-Mania's blog to piece together her everyday activities and emotions, perfectly illustrating the toxic imposition of others onto Mima.
Me-Mania seems to desperately cling to Mima's pop star fantasy as some form of escapism. His obsession for Mima isn't for her music or for her performances, but it's in the idea that she appears to see him when nobody else does, when in fact she's simply entertaining an audience. It's this twisted sense of ownership over her that inspires him to create a virtual dollhouse for the Mima that he perceives. At first chronicling real mannerisms that he observed as an obsessed fan, but later completely fabricating Mima's own thoughts through diary entries, as a way to rationalize behavior that he didn't approve of in the real Mima. At first, she recognizes the blog as the work of a strange fan, but later she seems to obsessively question if the posts are a reflection of her own subconscious. In the film, Mima is a performer. She knows to quit the act and step into the real world when she walks off stage or when the cameras stop rolling. Still, when the thought is planted into her head, she can't shake the feeling that she's lost herself somehow. And today, where performance and authentic life have merged in the online world, the lines are far more easy to lose sight of.
Mima is an aspirational figure in many ways. She's young, beautiful, and talented. Her manager literally wants to be her, and she's the object of desire for countless male characters. Yet, almost paradoxically, this influence comes with the powerlessness to confront who she is and what she wants. This is one of Mima's many double binds. Her talents and influence are inherently hers, but they're seemingly never hers to control. To say that we don't get much of an idea of what Mima wants is a bit of an understatement. From the movie's opening scene, when Mima is supposed to announce that she's leaving Cham, one of her group members must speak for her when Mima is unable to announce the news herself. Mima's uncertainty is symptomatic of a larger doubt about herself that is pushed to the extreme over the course of the film. While some of those exacerbating factors are unique to being a pop idol, the fixation that Mima develops with the online world, and the online world with Mima, precurses an era overwhelmingly dominated by social media and its blurry treatment of the personal and the anonymous.
Who are we really? Are we the person perceived by the public or our loved ones? Maybe the truest version of ourselves is the person that we perceive ourselves to be. While the complex nature of our sense of identity is no doubt timeless, it's only further complicated by today's largely digital world. Increasingly, our virtual lives feel just as real as the physical one. Everything from work life to dating is done through a screen. So much of our daily interactions and relationships are experienced virtually. We wear our curated profiles as avatar versions of ourselves, and sometimes it even feels like the truer, more honest version, despite the fact that it's also largely calculated and performative. It's no surprise then that as larger portions of our lives are experienced this way, that our sense of identity is heavily shaped by who we project ourselves to be online. But there is a distance created in the real world with the kind of intimacy and control that we've achieved in the virtual one. Something similar to the anxieties illustrated through Mima, that reality is constantly just about to slip through our fingers.
昨日は本当だったの?
This tendency to blur the lines is another double bind, one that is more relevant than ever. Social media creates an intensely personal, yet almost without exception, one-dimensional image of someone while disregarding their fuller complexities. And yet, we're heavily invested and attached to these personas, sold by their projection of perceived authenticity and intimacy. It is then perhaps no surprise that the people who are most unable to distinguish the real Mima from the imaginary react most violently to what they believe are aberrations in her true self. As Rumi and Mimania feed off of the other's fantasies and enable the other to higher levels of violence and delusion, they believe they're acting out of love and concern. The dynamic between Mimania, Rumi, and Mima is ironically described very well in Cham's opening song, Angel of Love, which mentions a Cupid-like figure who, quote, exists only for you, and encourages its assumedly lovelorn listener to, quote, change yourself and attack the object of their desires in pursuit of love. The lyrics and beat are a typical pop song, fun and upbeat, yet ultimately, we think, harmlessly shallow. In reality, as with the performative platitudes that thrive in an online world with little time or subtlety, the indiscriminate messaging surrounding Mima's idol career allow fans turned fanatics to develop and exercise a disproportionate sense of ownership under the guise of love and positivity. Take Rumi, who's one of the few significant female characters in the film we are first led to view as a motherly figure for Mima. She looks out for her interests in the face of predatory male photographers and producers and speaks up for Mima when she often is silent. But when Rumi is revealed to be the mastermind behind the attack surrounding Mima, we realize that, far from being a protector, Rumi is yet another predator, with an unhealthy attachment to Mima's simplistic and innocent pop idol image.
なのに、あなたが邪魔ばっかりして、ルミちゃんもすんごい怒ってた。お願い、やめて。
Rumi, a former idol herself, can be read as an especially powerful characterization of the impossible standards of youth and beauty that thrive online. Despite being middle-aged and motherly, Rumi is unable to distinguish herself from Mima, and is literally chasing a shadow figure of her past self that neither exists nor is attainable.
In the final scenes, as she's escaping from Rumi, Mima is finally able to fight for her identity with some certainty.
ミマは二人もいらないんだもん。私が見るわよ。冗談。ミマはアイドルなんだよ。あなたは汚い偽物よ。そんなの知らない。私は私よ。
This could be Mima's final double bind. Two irreconcilable worlds. The real physical Mima and the constructed persona by Rumi and Mimania come face to face and ultimately collide in all their unavoidable and destructive contradictions. Which brings us to the very end of the movie, with Mima's closing line of affirmation. Some have taken the ambiguity of Mima's words and expression to mean that there is still perhaps a part of her that's plagued by uncertainty or haunted by the identity that Rumi and Mimania created for her. While we agree that there is a level of uncertainty, we also believe that it doesn't necessarily cast a sinister shadow over the movie's final scene. In fact, that ambiguity arguably makes a more fitting ending. If Perfect Blue teaches us anything, it's that clinging to inflexible ideals and notions of identity is destructive. Perfect Blue embraces the subtle complexities and contradictions of the human condition, that we're always changing and that certainty about who we are is impossible. It is perhaps that understanding that allowed Satoshi Kon to portray so accurately the ways in which the internet and social media would affect our sense of self decades later.
Hey everyone, this is Audrey.
Hi, I'm Michelle. We hope you enjoyed our video on Perfect Blue. We're hoping to do more film analysis and commentary type videos, so if you have suggestions, please leave us a comment and let us know. We've also linked down below some of our favorite videos on Perfect Blue, so make sure you check those out.
And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, just give us a like and subscribe. We're always open to feedback and suggestions, so if there's anything you think that we might have missed or something else that you'd like to discuss, just let us know in the comments below, and we hope to see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.